Welcome to the Soul Wisdom Project, the living blueprint of the soul. With me, Shakti Bottazzi, your host. Do you ever feel overwhelmed by your daily life as if something inside you is trying to get your attention? As an international teacher, shaman, and energy healer, I will bring the tools of a lifetime to guide you to explore how to live consciously, awaken your innate wisdom, integrating the design, development, and emergence of your divine blueprint. Each episode blends grounded conversation with multidimensional insight, guiding you to release old patterns, align with your higher intelligence, and live awake, aware, and fully present. The Soul Wisdom Project with me, Shakti Bottazzi, starts now. Welcome in this middle of June for June's energies plus the rest of the year as well, and the solstice portal. A lot is happening energetically in the skies at this time, and that's why today's episode should be one where you're getting pen and pencil and paper in writing down some of these dates. We're going to be looking at what's happening in the skies and how that will be impacting your life until mid-July, because as of the rest of mid-July onwards, there's a lot more happening, which we can discuss in another episode. Today, you're going to walk away with 3 big awarenesses. One is why time is money versus time is art and purpose matters. What does that need to be? What are portals of time? And what are the midpoints between the seasons and why it matters? And finally, how to harness the energy of the solstice coming up very soon. Excited? This is a big episode. There's a lot I want to share with you, and I invite you to listen to the information, which has a lot of mind in it, but also to listen to the transmission that comes with this information. So let's dive right in. The first aspect I want to talk to you about and to bring some food for thought is the fact that the calendar we use to live was built for taxation, not for following the rhythms of nature. This calendar we look at for month by month, June, July, etc. It's actually a calendar that is called the Gregorian calendar, and it moves not following nature at all. It was in Latin, the word calenda means what we now call calendar, and it's about the day debts were collected. This was the day in which the Romans collected taxes, basically. And that's how the concept of calendar begins, so that people can count the days when they need to pay taxes. And it initiated with 10 months. And that's why you have the months like September 7th, October 8, November 9, December 10. And you may say, well, how is it that September is not the 7th month, but the 9th month? And that December is not the 10th month, but the 12th month? That's because in comes Julius Caesar. And Julius Caesar was so important and had such a profound sense of self that he wanted a month just for himself. So he named July for himself and said, where am I going to put July? Smack in the middle of the year. So suddenly September is September, right? It's October, really. And then Emperor Augustus did the same and created August and named it for himself. And he named it right there with Julius's month, July. So suddenly September, the 7th month, moved forward to be the 9th month. And Octo, which means 8th, moved out down the road to be the 10th month, and so on and so forth. And here we are with this calendar that makes no sense at all, and that has no rhyme and reason, no connection to what happens in the turn of the sun, the moon, the seasons is completely disconnected with the natural rhythms. And if you tune into what happens with how you manage your calendar, you may notice that the calendar is running new. We live in this world with the concept that's in running the subconscious that says time is money, right? Isn't that true? Time is money. And so we run, run, run against the clock and we try to fit as much as we can in one day. And we try to grab our calendars and organize everything and have color calendars. And hey, I'm guilty of that too. And we move through life running against time to be productive because that's the program that has been running the world for the past 3, 4,000 years for sure. Wow, right? So, what happens in the nations, tribes, cultures that didn't really buy into this fake construct of this calendar to actually know which days I need to pay taxes? Well, you have the whole Celtic and Norse calendar that's actually not a calendar. It's called the Wheel of the Year, which I love because it's earth based. It's a tradition that's earth based. And it is set up with a circle, which is the whole year. And it's divided into four sections, which are the seasons, and it has a cross in what's called the cross quarter days in the middle. So in the Wheel of the Year, you have the basic two equinoxes and solstices. And if you are in the northern hemisphere or you're in the southern hemisphere, this changes. Basically, the Wheel of the Year is shifting 6 months because in the soon to be northern hemisphere summer solstice, in the southern hemisphere is the winter solstice. I'm very sensitive to this because I was born and raised in Argentina and I lived in the southern hemisphere until I was nearly 30 years old. So for me, I still have friends and family. My mom is there. She's 101 people. And when we are hitting the summer, they're hitting the winter. And when they're in the middle of the summer, we're in the middle of the winter. So it's very, very in my face. So we have the solstices and the equinoxes, and then we have the midpoints. So February 1st, we have that midpoint of winter. Let's address the northern hemisphere. And if you are listening and you're in the southern hemisphere, think of the wheel shifted 6 months so we can follow the same thing. So for you, instead of February 1st, it'll be August 1st, but it holds, right? So it's called Imbolc. And Imbolc is the midpoint between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. Okay? Then we have May 1st, which Southern Hemisphere, November 1st, October 31st. We already know that's a big opening, right? The Samhain, the Halloween. So we have May 1st, Beltane, and that's the midpoint between the spring equinox and the summer solstice. And then we have Lugnasad, which is super different to pronounce, difficult to pronounce. Some people also pronounce it Lamas, which is a lot simpler. And it's August 1st, the midpoint between the summer solstice and the autumn equinox. And finally, Samhain, Hallows Eve, which is the midpoint between the fall or autumn equinox and the winter solstice. And so it begins again. And this is particularly pertinent right now because we are just a few days away from the solstice. So we'll be addressing that in a moment. But this wheel, we currently are between Beltane, May 1st, and August 1st, which is Lugnasad. And then we have the summer solstice coming up. And this wheel really tracks the natural cycles of the earth, right? The seasons. And it's not a cycle that has anything to do with a fake construct like a tax collector, right? Well, others that were also amazing at tracking time in a natural cycle was the Mayan culture. They had something I can't remember, many, many dozens of calendars. I can't remember how many right now. I thought I knew and something escaped my mind, but they have many, many calendars. And through a couple of those, a calendar that followed the growth cycle of corn, which the growth cycle of corn happens to be very much the growth cycle of a baby in a mother's womb. And then a cycle that follows the cycles of the moon and the sun. In the modern world, somebody, Valum Vodham, took that information, that wisdom, and created a calendar known as the Tzolkin. It's actually spelled T as in Tom, Z as in zebra, Olkin, Tzolkin calendar, which is based on the Mayan calendar system. And what's beautiful about it is that it really honors time as art, time as purpose, time as creation. And it follows the most beautiful cycle, which is the 13 moons. Think about this. A moon cycle is about 28 days and a few hours. So when you multiply that 28 days by 13 and those few hours, you have 364 days and a little bit. And the sun takes 365 days to go, the earth takes 365 days to go around the sun. So what they created is a calendar that aligns the cycle of the moon with the cycle of the sun. But what have you noticed with what I just said is that 364-ish and 365-ish. So this Solstice calendar says the year goes between, listen up, July 26th to, guess, July 24th. So there's a day in the middle, July 25th. What do we do with that? That day is called the day out of time. And it's called the day out of time so that we can have that space in the time to connect with the earth. It's a day for peace. It's a day for a reset. It's a day I've been honoring for the last decade. Every time I've held events through that day as well to help everybody get into this beautiful alignment. Last year, I was guided to be in Hawaii holding a retreat during that time. We ended up the lunar year. We had the day out of time. We honored the beginning of the new cycle. It was amazing to be in such a potent land like Hawaii is. So now you can understand better what does it mean to follow a cycle and a calendar that has to do with the natural rhythms of the earth versus a random beginning of earth, months that have 28 days and months that have 31 days and months that have 30 days. There's no rhyme or reason. If you follow a 13 moon calendar, all weeks would have the same days of the 28 days. They would be Monday, Tuesday, they're always, all the weeks will be clean. You wouldn't have anything like we have right now. A month ends on Wednesday and then it starts on Thursday, or all the randomness from the Gregorian calendar. And then who else used to be so connected to the earth? It used to be also the Egyptians. There was a lot of teachings around the natural cycles of the earth, about how the seasons had the flowing of the river Nile, that with all the silt from the bottom of the river created really nurturing components for the land. So then they could grow their food, and then the food would be harvested at the right time. And they too had calendars that followed the sun cycles and the seasons cycles. And as it happens, they had this date known as the Lion's Gate. And the Lion's Gate was really a time that starts, guess when? The day out of time on July 25th, and peaks on 8/8 and ends on the 12th of August. And that's a period that, with all the movement of the Earth axis, may have shifted a little bit, maybe one day over here, one day over there, because of the hours that shift year upon year. But that window is the window in which the stars, Sirius, and the sun and the Earth are perfectly aligned in the sky. And the Orion's Belt constellation aligns on top of the three pyramids of Giza. These are cultures that knew what it meant and honored and left us a lot of signs so that we could decipher what it means to really honor time as a cycle of the truth of our lives and not as an outside construct that forces into breaking our natural sense of being. So, this brings me to a very important aspect, and is this aspect of what does it mean to have an alignment with what's happening in the skies, in the earth cycles, the seasons, the moon cycles, the planets that are in our galaxy and that have a significance for us. So very soon we will have the solstice, like I said, on June 21st. The sun will enter the sign of Cancer in the zodiac, in the astrological zodiac. In astrology, we divide the sky, the 360-degree pie or wheel of the sky, in 12 parts. And in human design, we divide it in 64 parts. But for today's episode, because it's more familiar, let's follow the astrology division of 12 parts. So on June 21st, when we hit that solstice, which is a geographical setting of the sun closest to the earth as the earth moves around the sun, and it hits it straight perpendicular at the equator, that's when the sun happens to enter the zodiac sign of Cancer and what we call the summer solstice. In the southern hemisphere, in that orbit of the earth around the sun, it's farther apart from the sun, the earth, because the orbit is not perfectly centered, and that's the winter solstice. For us in the northern hemisphere, wherever you will be, is the longest day of the year, the day that has the most light. And what we celebrate when it's February 1st is the fact that as of that day, truly once again, the days begin to lengthen in a way that we can understand, and the light hours are longer than the night hours until summer begins and we have this super long day that is the longest day. And then after that day, the days begin to shorten again. But on that day, during the summer, there's a natural energetic that runs through us that moves us outwards. We want to go outside. We're drawn to the light of the sun. We're drawn to expansion, aliveness. Our body is ready to move. All those hours of light naturally activate our pineal gland, naturally has us being awake with ease. Well, think about it the other way around. For those of you in the southern hemisphere, for us when we're in winter, the longest night, right? The longest night that happens for us around Christmas, 21st-ish of December, is when winter begins, is the shortest day, the longest night, and we are invited just naturally to go inwards, to cocoon, to go into the depths, into the stillness, into sitting in front of the hearth, into dreaming, into retreating our energy from the outside craziness and going inside. So these are thresholds. I like to call them thresholds. What is a threshold? A threshold is a doorway. If you think about a temple, like in Egypt, oh my gosh, this was such a journey of thresholds when I took a group to Egypt in 2023. And every temple doesn't have just one threshold. This is amazing. So you're at the beginning of the entrance of a temple, and you have what we expect to be a threshold, right? The two pillars and a stone at the top, and it's clearly an enormous doorway to step into the temple. And part of visiting Egypt is learning really that when you put a foot on the other side and you move through this threshold, through this big door entering the temple, you enter a different frequency. These temples have so many thousands of years of energetics. You can feel it. You can feel it in your body. And then as you move into the temple, all temples have the holies of holiest at the very end of the temple. So before you get to the holies of holies, you have to step through several thresholds that become smaller and smaller, creating a physical representation of the fact that you're reaching that point inside that has a resonance with that point inside of our bodies that is that holies of holies. And that made it so beautiful for me because I have been working with thresholds, portals, vortexes, and gateways on all the names people give for many years. And this was so tangible and so physical. And so it is important to understand that these same thresholds happen energetically as we move through these moments, through a new moon, a moment of complete darkness, that moment where there is not one split ray of the sun reflected on the moon because the earth in the middle blocks all light from reaching the moon. That moment, natural native traditions that used to be very aware of the earth and the earth cycle, knew to go inside, to retreat, to gather, to stay together during that time because it was a time to let go. Women in those tribes naturally were aligned to that rhythm and they used to bleed during the dark moon. And so women would be gathering in rooms, allowing the bleeding to happen while nourishing the earth with their blood. And those were also the times in which those women bleeding had the heightened awareness of their intuition. It was the highest intuitive moment for them when they would really receive information for what was best for the tribes. This wasn't random. It was very clearly understood that our physical bodies are aligned, resonate, are completely in the same circle and cycle than the earth, which is our planet that hosts us, our mothership. We are traveling through space at an incredible speed. We don't realize it, but we are in there doing all things with her, with the earth. And so when you understand that, even in this modern day, you understand that that dark moon, it's a doorway, that you too have time that day to, not time, that you too have the ability on that day to intuit with more clarity, that the veil for you is thinner. At the same time, they understood that the full moon, when the sun was fully reflecting on the moon, was a time of bursts, of creation, of like a pregnant woman is ready to deliver the baby. And they worked with these energies. So I use the word portal or gateway. And then the same is true for the solstices, the equinoxes, the midpoints. There's a reason something is happening. The light is shifting. There's an equal night and equal day, or there is a longer night and a shorter day, and suddenly that shifts. And those are thresholds. And when we begin to be aware that these are thresholds and we can work with the energies of these thresholds, our lives begin to shift and change, and we begin to have more synchronicities happening because we are flowing with the flow. So let's talk about what's happening at this moment in the sky in Chiron. So as we're having this conversation on June 16th, within minutes, the sun will be entering Cancer. Sounds a little bit earlier, but that's how it's happening this year in June. And it will be in what's called a sextile to Chiron in Taurus. Chiron entered Taurus just 2 days before now. Now, what's really interesting is that Chiron is our wound. We come to this life with a karmic wound. And through the lessons we learn through that wound, at around age 50, Chiron goes and hits again that place it was when you were born. And suddenly, whatever you haven't learned from that wound is rushed. You encounter a lot of events that really put you in a stronghold and stretch you and challenge you, because whatever you haven't finished learning, you have to finish learning. Because after the Chiron return, that wounding, you integrate that and suddenly becomes that medicine, that wisdom that you can share with others, especially on the topic of your wounding. So to have Chiron, the wounded healer, in Aries, which is where it's been for a while. And Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. So we were talking for humanity about identity as a wound. Okay. So personally, I feel that I'm an Aries, but regardless of your zodiac sign, this was an information that was pouring down on earth. Who am I? Do I have the right to exist as I am? That was like the biggest questioning of Chiron for all of humanity. Now it's moving into Taurus, and the conversation shifts. The wound is no longer into the feeling of who am I, or do I have the right to be who I am? It's in the body. Taurus is about healthiness, the well-being of the body, the beauty of the spaces where we live. So the conversation, it shifts into safety, into the earth itself. Am I safe here? Do I belong in this body? Can I trust what I have? These are the questions that will be moving through the collective unconscious. This is a big shift. It's a multi-layer recalibration of where healing lives. And it begins right at the solstice. It really shifts right at the solstice. So it's big. So I want to walk through the most significant energies between now and July 24th, which, like I just shared with you, is the last day of the Tzolk'in calendar year. And I'm going to give you some astrological details that you can use so you can understand the waves moving through you and how to harness those energies, and to understand if you're being pulled down or into an inner inquiry, that you have a better understanding of why that is happening. So we will be doing that in a few moments. We're going to go for a break so that you can grab your water, your drink, you can grab pen, and you can grab a paper, because you may want to write a few of these things down. And I want to tell you that I think that it'll support you profoundly to have a meditation that is quick and that it helps you harmonize your whole physicality and your whole energy bodies throughout this time. So you can go onto my website, theawakenpath.com, and right there on the homepage, you can see this harmonizing meditation under the words gifts. In the menu, you go gifts and download this harmonizing meditation. Also is written as rainbow meditation. And it's a super 10, 12-minute meditation you can do daily to align every single energy center in your body so that you can start the day in an empowered, grounded, and aligned way, and then handle all these waves of energy coming towards you. So on my website, theawakenpath.com, under the menu Gifts, Rainbow Meditation, download it. That's there for you. So let's go for a short break, for a short pause, grab pen, grab paper, and we'll be right back. Hi, I'm Shakti Bottazzi. In August 2027, I'm inviting you to join me in Luxor, Egypt, where a total solar eclipse will cast 6 minutes of sacred darkness over one of the most powerful lands on Earth. I'll be there guiding an initiation journey at the exact convergence of the solar eclipse, and a few days later, the Lion's Gate portal on 8/8, a moment of profound alignment, activation, and transformation, the start of a new era for humanity. Registration closes June 30th, 2026, and early bird pricing ends May 30th, 2026. You can go to my website, theawakenpath.com, and right there on the homepage, go to the golden threshold and sign up for this moment. Your soul already knows. And we are back. I am so curious to know if this is landing for you. If you have questions about this, feel free to send us your questions so that we can answer them the next episode, even if you want to send them anytime or even after the episode. I'd love to accompany you in this embodiment of the cycles of the earth and your life. How can you really align more with the natural cycles of the earth? We've discussed how we are being guided through a calendar that is completely random, the Gregorian calendar that says time is money, versus the natural calendars from different civilizations and tribes that were connected to the earth, that understand time as a connection to the cycles of the earth, time as art, time as creation, time as purpose, a completely different approach to how we live life. So in a moment, what I want to do for you is give you a few of the bigger movements that are happening in the skies that will be impacting us from now until the next big moment, which, as I described, is when we end this first 13-month moon year on July 24th. So let's dive right in. So moon cycles, we said. So just yesterday on June 15th, we had a new moon in Gemini. A new moon in Gemini. So new moons always are moons where we can seed whatever we want to plant. But remember how I mentioned just before our break that during the dark part of the moon, when no rays of the sun are hitting the moon, we have the most powerful times of intuition. Well, when you have a new moon, you have to wait for a few degrees, so a couple of hours at least, so one more degree moves on, so that some of the rays of the sun are hitting the moon, so that we can plant a seed, not in the full dark, but when just a little bit of life force is hitting the new moon. So a new moon is different than a full moon. When we have a full moon, we can work in the span of a day or two before the full moon, a day or two after the full moon. This is an energy that's about to burst open. So you can work with that in that portal time, 3-4 days around that full moon. When we're talking about new moon, that's not the same. We want to honor that moment of death, of darkness. And we don't want to plant anything until we move a few degrees after the new moon, when the sun is already hitting the moon and we have a few rays of sun that are beginning to put life into it. So in this new moon that was yesterday, we may have been guided into an inquiry about what is it that we want to be more clear about our lives. But now, as this moon is moving already today, June 16th, into the light, let's ask ourselves some sharper questions, gather information, remain curious, and feel free to make declarations under this little thin moon. Plant the seeds for what you would like have happen in the next moon cycle, because we have 28 days to make this happen, but also in the next big cycle of the full year, however long we want. At the same time, in a couple of days, like I said, Chiron entered Taurus, and we spoke about that. And Chiron has a very long cycle. It's 50 years, so it'll be staying in Taurus and for a while. And as it's just beginning to enter Taurus, you will be noticing that your body may be calling you into being more gentle with your body, into feeling your body more. Like your body always pings us, our bodies always pings us, but maybe we haven't been able to pay attention. And with Chiron in Aries, we were more over here about the wound of, am I able to be who I am? But this is about the body. So you will notice, because the ruler of Taurus is Venus, and Venus is about beauty and well-being and yumminess in the body. You will notice as Chiron moves more and more into Taurus, because the first degrees are in the shift, but once it's really into Taurus, you will notice how this is happening. And the invitation is to go there. What can happen? What if you begin doing things to take care of your body a little bit more? What if you shift one thing about how you take care of your body? What if you allow your body to have more rest, or take a bubble bath more often, or be out in nature if you especially are in the northern hemisphere? Eat healthy fruits, colorful fruits from the summer, more in alignment with the cycles and the seasons, as opposed to wanting to grab for a winter fruit like an orange. Maybe grab for these yummy, juicy summer fruits. And what if you can lean into that? Then we move, once Chiron moves into Taurus, we have the beautiful solstice, the sun in Cancer. We cross this big threshold. For the next 3 months, we'll be in summer energy that leads us outside. Southern hemisphere, winter energy that leads us inside. So for those of us in the northern hemisphere, actually both, allow the body to lead you. Both. For the summer, it'll lead us outside, more movement. For the winter, it'll lead us inside, cocooning in front of the fire, or just cuddled under a blanket, whatever that is. Then forward movement, June 29th, we have a full moon. Now, what is a new moon and what is a full moon? A new moon is when the sun and the moon are basically in the same spot in the sky, and the full moon is when the sun and the moon are opposite each other. So when we have a new moon, the sun and the moon are in the same zodiac sign. But when you have a full moon, the sun is in Cancer in this case, and the full moon is exactly opposite. And what's in front of Cancer in the wheel of the zodiac? Capricorn. So we speak that this full moon is in Capricorn. It's not in Cancer. The sun is in Cancer, the full moon is in Capricorn. This is something that confuses a lot of people about the full moon. They don't understand that the moon is actually in a different sign than the sun is. In this case, Capricorn is structure, is work hard, is grounding, is earth. And Cancer is about the heart, is about the emotions, is about the hearth. It's about home versus institution. This is what this full moon is. And so it's about what you feel versus what the system is wanting from you. And it is in such alignment with what I've spoken in past episodes of Saturn and Neptune being together in Aries. This full moon surfaces the emotional truth of whatever structure you're living inside. So, family, career, community, your own internal rules that you set for yourself. And it is truly an unusual full moon because at the same time that this is happening, Mercury, the planet of communication, the planet of leading contracts and technologies and agreements, stations retrograde on the same day. So brace yourself, people, because the revelation is real. It's going to be quite an interesting inner dialogue where you will be getting clarity about what's not working in the structure you've been living. And your inner dialogue, because Mercury takes us inside, will be giving you insights about what is the truth of your desire. But while Mercury is retrograde, it's not the time to make the announcements. It's not the time to take the steps. Absolutely stay away from that. It's the time to allow for that inner connection and to really allow for that messy confusion to gain clarity. It's a time, because we're in Cancer, to feel what is true and let it settle before you speak, which is Mercury. Big one. This is a big one. If as the full moon comes, come back and re-listen to this part so you know what type of approach will be supporting you for this this full moon. So at the same time, on June 30th, Jupiter, which is called the great benefic, and it's also a planet that magnifies everything. So it magnifies things that could be positive, and it magnifies things that could also bring forth fanatism. So watch out, right? But Jupiter enters Leo. And this is what the solstice portal opens towards, this Jupiter moving into Leo, because Leo is also activating the heart. It's about creative expression, it's about visibility, it's about abundance. And so the second half of this year carries this energy. It'll be pulling you into understanding what is it that wants to be shown to you, that you've maybe put in the shadow, and that really wants to come out in your life, and it'll be spurting up at you. And if you don't pay attention, it'll be exploding in your face. What creative forces have been waiting? And this is the season that's opening that. Super interesting is that mid-July, there's also an activation of the outer planets. The outer planets are Uranus, Pluto, the farther away planets. And Uranus has entered Gemini. Mercury rules Gemini a month ago or so. And it forms an exact sextile to Neptune. Now, a sextile is a beautiful relationship in between planets where the planets' energetics collaborate with each other. It's like they add up to each other. So on July 15th, we have this. And it also trines Pluto. So we have Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto on the 18th. This is a big deal. This is about, because Uranus brings about change and radical transformation, and Pluto does too, but Neptune brings the dissolution of boundaries and brings the experience of the most beautiful human love that we can experience. So this outer planet lattice is activating the collective, the deep structural lattice of the collective. And it's going to be taking us into visionary experimentation, because these are planets where systems change. These are planets with long cycles. So we're going to see how meaningful systems change to meet spiritual reorganization at the depth of what we have in our reality. And if you've been feeling that the field has been accelerated, well, brace yourself, because it'll keep accelerating. And you've probably heard me say we're heading into a huge, huge humanity's threshold next year in August. Reason why I'm inviting you to come to Egypt with me through the longest solar eclipse of the century. But personally, know that this is an inspirational window. It truly is a time where you can allow that intuition, that inspiration to settle. Don't think it's volatile, but it's a window that you want to open up to those downloads that are coming and to ground them before you act upon them. Today I was talking to a client of mine, and she was asking me questions exactly about this, questions about, well, how do I know when I channel that I'm really bringing down the downloads, and how do I know that it's not my mind becoming confused with the downloads? And it's a very subtle, tricky thing to learn, to discern, and meditation is key for that, so that you can really learn and be trained into what's that feeling of the witness that comes very clearly when you're meditating versus what that mind is that wants to run with whatever it is. And it's a time where it's going to be important for you to really open up to these downloads and then verify, discern, is this my mind inviting me into crazy making, or is this truly truth from my higher self, from the creation, the universe, the divine, whatever works for you in terms of that higher force that keeps us alive and in connection to our soul. Super powerful time. And then from there, we go, like I said, to July 24th, the last day of the Solstice calendar, the moon calendar. Then we have the day out of time on July 25th. And at the same time, we'll have the opening of the Lion's Gate, which is a super fiery energy. The sun, the earth, and Sirius are going to be aligned, and that is a profound energetic when these big luminaries are aligned. The magnetic pull is big, and it's a pull about abundance, about opening our hearts, about shining our light, about looking at our wounds of not enoughness. And at the same time, it's an activation for higher consciousness, for the ascension path we're on, for illumination of this new earth archetype and paradigm that we're bringing down and materializing. And then July 26th, new lunar year begins, a genuine new cycle. So it truly is not January 1st. It's not a tax date. It's truly this day. So from the solstice on June 21st to July 26th, which we have, 5 days, you will be crossing from one energetic year to another. You're going to feel this. It's not one day, cycles of, yes, the sun is moving closer, but when we're talking about a planet like the Earth that goes around the sun in 365 days, on your own, you can understand that 2 or 3 days are more or less the same energetically, right? Even though I'm pinpointing the precise hour or the precise day, it's roughly around there. So you will be feeling this. You will be feeling this shift to understand the conclusion of some energies and the opening up of new energies. And now you know why, because in truth, we're really moving from one cycle to the other. We're using this June 21st to wrap up a full cycle of 13 moons of 28 days. And the other thing about this is that if we want to look at it from the Gregorian calendar, because the other thing I like to explain is that we do live in a society with this Gregorian calendar has been out there for a couple of thousand years at least. And therefore, in the collective unconscious, there's a recognition that the end of June is, in any case, the half of the year, the half of this calendar random year. But we have it within us. We have it. We're like, wow, 6 months have already passed. I only have half of the year ahead of me. I need to reset. I need to reset and reevaluate the goals I set for myself for the year, because if I keep this route, I've been veering out of my course and I have to course correct. So I'm giving you the precision of the astrology of what's happening, but at the same time, I'm giving you the understanding that you may already be feeling it, even though you don't understand why this is happening. But it's because in the collective unconscious, you already know you're half the way through the year, right? So I want to remind you to download the Rainbow Meditation. It's a 12 to 15 minute practice. You anchor yourself to the core of the earth. You bring that energy up through my guidance, my voice, and you use every energy center to harmonize and align yourself to that. And it's a beautiful meditation for the beginning of a season, for the beginning of a day, for crossing a threshold with your whole self in alignment. And it is free and it's waiting for you in my website, theawakenpath.com/rainbow-meditation, or simply homepage gifts rainbow meditation. You will find it there no matter what. Now, I want to, as we come towards the end of today's call, to step back for a moment and come back to the summer solstice or the winter solstice, as you may. And I want to speak to the importance of this threshold, of this doorway, of this pivotal moment for us. And I love, and I have done it for many years, to do ceremonies during these times, these portals of times, like the solstice. And in this case, you're going to have to tune into which hemisphere you're in. I'm going to give the example for the northern hemisphere, but you can figure it out with what I'm going to say for the southern hemisphere. So the luminary we're honoring here is the sun. We're either closest to the sun, as in the summer, or we're farther away from the sun, as in the winter. And the sun resonates with the sign of Leo, which is, as we enter the solstice, we enter the sign of Leo. We move from, we enter the sign of Cancer. Sorry. I'm confused. The sun, back to the sun. The sun reflects our light. It's who we are. We harness the energy of the sun to live, to have a life that needs the energy of the sun. When we don't get the light of the sun, we become depressed. And that's why winters that are really rough for people that are meant to stay inside of their cabins all winter because it's snowing and it's very cold, sometimes become rough on themselves because we tend to be depressed if we don't get the light of the sun that illuminates us and through our retina hits our pineal gland and tells us there's life. And so very important to understand how this is. Are you being led to connect with the sun? Allow that light to come through. So solstice, you want to do a ceremony honoring that and honoring the resonance of the sun as a luminary and as an illumination of our own sense of self. Our sense of self, of the I am who I am, lives in our solar plexus. The solar plexus energetically has the color yellow, like the light of the sun. And we shine who we are energetically from that center. So when we align and we harmonize, like with the rainbow meditation, we allow every energy center that we have to do what is their role, let's say. So for the heart is to open up that space, to allows us to be feeling expansive, to feel the beauty of giving and receiving love in the breath of love. For the solar plexus, the sun in the solstice activates our truth of the I am. I am who I am. The ability to shine that light, your light, the light only you can shine. And like I said in the last episode that we were on, the only person that can be you and do what you're here to do is you. Nobody else can do what you're here to do. So this solstice is a beautiful time to do a ceremony to call in that powerful uniqueness so that you can shine your light in emulation with the sunlight and asking for the sun to activate your inner sun that sits in the solar plexus. How I recommend you do this? Well, if you're in the summer northern hemisphere, I recommend you do this outside, sitting by the sun. If you have a water source, a stream, a river, the ocean, a lake, with your feet in the water or near the water, if not with the feet barefoot on the earth, utilizing elements of nature, flowers, stones, crystals, if you have them too, water from the full moon or the new moon that you've left outside all night during the new moon or the full moon, and to create a beautiful nature's altar where you sit by it or stand by it or near it if you want to have your feet in the water, and you claim your light. You claim who you are. If you happen to be in the southern hemisphere, and this is hard because you can't do this, do it in front of the hearth, do it in front of a window, do it wherever you want, on a table. Metaphorically, you can still do that. And the invitation is to claim all of your parts, to call back all of the parts of you that are those parts where you have given your power away. You let others decide for you. You believe you're not enough to make the decisions. You believe you're not good enough to do or see or say whatever it is you want to say. It truly is a time to reclaim the doubt that plays inside of you. Toss that doubt away. Really allow the sun to activate that. And through the Cancer sign, which is this, as we're entering from Gemini to Cancer, just allow your heart to open and receive yourself and open up to your own emotions of what is flowing through you. And take stock. What is that information flowing through you? What is it telling you? And receive it. Don't judge it. Just welcome it. Embrace it. That's about the Cancer energy. And then let it flush through you. And honor all of who you are and know that we are meant to be imperfectly perfect. And then at the end of the ceremony, if you've used natural elements from nature, I recommend that you just pour some of that moon water on that and that leave it there for the elves and the fairies to take care of it, ask them to take care of it, and to allow nature to naturally compost that. If on top of the altar you included elements that are yours, like maybe a crystal or maybe I don't know, a cup of water or whatever, we'll take those elements back and again allow nature to do its natural role of composting whatever it is that you've created in that altar. Harness all that energy back into you, touching your heart, touching your solar plexus, being conscious of your feet on the ground, and honoring a closure of this ceremony that you did with yourself, giving gratitude to what you felt. Use your words, say it out loud. Don't do it inside your mind. Many of us are shy when we're doing ceremonies to say things out loud, but saying things out loud is powerful because sound is a mechanic wave of energy that is very impactful. And remember that words, when you utter words, you're casting a spell. So say what you want out loud. Thank out loud. Say it out loud. Be powerful. Be in your power. Allow the light of the sun to really activate you. And just be you and have fun doing this. And that's the invitation for this solstice. This is how you honor a portal, by taking the moment of the portal and doing something that your reptilian brain can recognize as a transition between this was before and this was afterwards. And this is very important because as humans, that's why we need ceremonies, so that our reptilian brain can really capture the fact that something has changed. Otherwise, it stays in the mind and it doesn't come down to ground and anchor into the reality of what we're trying to do. This is actually a practice for all thresholds and all portals. Each one is individual and different. And that's why I'm giving you this specifically to honor that light inside of you resonating with the light of the sun. I really hope that today's explanation of the June plus energies and the solstice will support you on your path. We all need to shine powerfully who we are, to be unapologetically who we are. And it is my invitation and my hope that the Soul Wisdom Project is really supporting you in that. I thank you for your presence here today. I remind you to download the Rainbow Meditation from my website, or from the description to this video as well, or this podcast. And I wish you well and to have fun through these amazing portals that are coming. Lots of love and light. Thank you for joining me, Shakti Bottazzi, on the Soul Wisdom Project, remembering the living blueprint of the soul. Tune in every first and third Tuesday each month at 9 a.m. Pacific on Transformation Talk Radio. Continue your journey of conscious embodiment, integrating the design, development, and emergence of your divine blueprint. Deepen your exploration through my book, Remembering Her, a Soul Embodiment Journey, and discover mentoring and retreats at theawakenpath.com. Healing is possible. Your journey is sacred design in motion. To put overwhelm in your past, contact me at www.theawakenpath.com. Stay awake, stay aligned, and keep living your soul's wisdom. See you next time.